Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 186, IO 538a to b. Socrates is developing an argument which it seems is intended to prove that the rhapsode has no rhapsodic techne because the subject matter of a techne is exclusive to that techne, and all subject matter dealt with by the rhapsode in poetry must belong to other techne, other crafts, other skills, to show that all who have the same techne have the same subject matter. Socrates has used the example of 5 fingers of one of his hands. He knows that they are 5 fingers, and so does Io. They are both using the arithmetike techne, the craft of numbers. The identical subject matter is taken to an extreme here. They are precisely 5 fingers of one of Socrates' hands. Socrates could have said that he knows that 2 and 3 is 5, while Io knows that 1 and 3 is 4, and they would still both be using the same techne, but the problem is, for someone like Io, it might appear as if the subject matter differs. Another point Io doesn't consider is that Socrates is claiming that they both have the arithmetike techne simply by virtue of knowing that Socrates has 5 fingers on one of his hands. If Io had remembered an earlier argument, he would have had to conclude that Socrates is breaking his own rule about the technites, the craftsman. According to Socrates, in the much earlier argument where he proved for the first time that Io doesn't have a techne, he claimed that because Io doesn't know everything about rhapsody and isn't interested in every poet but is mainly concerned with Homer, and he doesn't know all the rhapsodists themselves, this means that Io doesn't have a techne, and this led to the 4 analogies, including the magnets, which explains how Io could do what he does while lacking any techne. If Io had now remembered that argument, and this is what one does in dialectic, one remembers earlier arguments and compares them with present arguments, Io would have had to conclude that Socrates is contradicting himself if he says that simply by knowing how many fingers Socrates has on one hand, they have the arithmetike techne. Surely, if one has the arithmetike techne, one would need to be at the level of a mathematical genius and not simple arithmetic pertaining to the fingers on one hand. Either Socrates is not serious about Io and Socrates having the arithmetike techne, or he isn't serious about refuting the notion that Io has the techne of rhapsody simply because he doesn't have complete knowledge of everything pertaining to rhapsody. Or Socrates isn't serious about his maximalist and minimalist interpretation of techne. He's maximalist when he's talking about the inability of Io to know everything about rhapsody, and he's minimalist in declaring that they both have arithmetike techne when it comes to one particular thing, the hand of Socrates and its 5 fingers. Both interpretations, the maximalist and the minimalist, are flawed in that they treat techne as somehow pertaining to the subject matter rather than what is done with the subject matter. As I pointed out last time, if Socrates' 5 fingers are in the arithmetike techne, then they cannot be in any other techne, according to his argument, such as the techne of the manicurist. Let's now return to Socrates' argument, where it seems he's getting close to finishing, setting up his argument against the techne of rhapsody. Ukun hostisan me echetina technen, tautes tes technes talegomena pratomena kalos, gignosken uk hoils testai, alethes leges. So whoever doesn't have a techne, he will be unable to recognize this technes, things being said or being done beautifully. You say true things. I have translated kalos literally as beautifully because we have here things being said or being done which are both appropriate to the art of the rhapsode. The rhapsode says and does things beautifully. However, beautifully can also be interpreted as finely, which is very close to well. There's a big overlap between beauty and goodness in the Greek world. They interchange these two concepts all the time, as we have seen in Hippias Major, where it's actually all sorted out for the one and only time in all of philosophy, as far as I can see. The good is the fitting, and the beautiful is the apparently fitting. Therefore, in any case where something appears fitting, it is beautiful. In some of those cases, what appears fitting actually is fitting and is therefore good, while in other cases what is actually good doesn't appear to be fitting and may actually appear to be unfitting. For the ramifications of all this, I refer the listener to Hippias Major. In the present instance, Io hears kalos and will immediately assume that it is in its aesthetic sense, things being said and being done beautifully are what he claims to be able to do in his techne of the rhapsodist. As Socrates points out, however, if someone doesn't have a techne, and in this specific case, Io may think that Socrates is talking about rhapsody, if someone doesn't have the techne, he will be unable to recognize things being said and the things being done beautifully. Io might suppose at this moment that this would prove that he does have a techne, because he himself is aware of things being said and being done beautifully when he performs any extract from Homer. We should note, however, that Socrates is purportedly talking about any techne here, and what matters in most techne is accuracy. Are the things being talked about true? Are the things being done correct? And in that case, it would be true to say that someone without the techne would be unable to recognize the things being said or done well. In other words, kalos must have its practical and not its aesthetic connotation. Someone, for example, with the arithmetike techne would be able to say well that the fingers on one hand amount to 5. Someone without the arithmeticae techne would be unable to recognize whether saying that there are 5 fingers on a hand is well said. Someone without the medical techne would be unable to recognize whether a diagnosis is well said or whether an operation or treatment is well done. The subject matter of the medical techne, the iatrike techne, is treatment, and before treatment, the diagnosis, actually finding what is wrong with the patient. It might be said that in general, the subject matter of the medical techne is the body, but more accurately it is the health of the body, and even more to the point, it is the methodology required and the application of the methodology required to maintain health or to correct an unhealthy state of the body. Someone who is not a doctor, someone who lacks the medical techne, would be unable to recognize the accuracy of a diagnosis or the efficiency of the treatment. That is what is meant by kalos, well, in that sort of techne. In Rhapsody, however, what is to be recognized as beautifully spoken or performed is the actual beauty of what is said or done. It is the method of presentation of the words and actions of the rhapsode which are to be judged. Someone with the techne will be able to judge from a professional point of view and will be able to spot any mistakes made. And yet I can't help thinking that if the audience don't recognize that the poetry is being said beautifully and the actions are being performed beautifully, if the audience don't recognize that, then the rhapsode has failed. And yet the audience doesn't have the techne of the rhapsode. This, however, isn't the point Socrates is making at the moment. He is about to launch his main attack now, showing that the techne of the rhapsode is non-existent because Rhapsody uses subject matter proper to other techne.